Hello and welcome to the Powertec Podcast. I am your host, Rob Richards, and this is episode 2. Got a very special online guest for you. This is John Hart, natural pro bodybuilder, Mr. America. John, welcome to the podcast. Look, you've had a massive presence in this natural bodybuilding and coaching for nearly 4 decades. Let me start off by asking what first pulled you into this world and also what's kept you going for so long?
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh,
straight in the deep end. Yeah.
Straight in the deep end of the pool. And I'm not going to get caught in the weeds. So I'm a good storyteller. Okay. So I'm going to tell you right now. Okay. I won't go too deep.
Yeah. Let's go.
But getting into it, my uncle took me to a Boyer Co seminar back in 1980 or 1979. It was right after the 1979 Mr. Olympia. I did not know what this bodybuilding thing was all about. I just knew that it was fascinating to me. And when I showed up at that seminar, man, oh man, I'm looking at this guy in a tracksuit, looked pretty, athletic, muscular underneath there. And he had just done the 1979 Mr. Olympia where Frank Zane had won. He took third. It was Frank Zane, Mike Mentzer, and then Boyer Co in third. And man, when he took that tracksuit off and did a posing routine, I was gone, man. I said, I have to know. It was all lit up inside me at that point. And so from that point on, I really did research. On the way out the door that day, they handed me a first issue of 1980 issue of Muscle Builder magazine with Frank Zane and Christine Zane on the cover. And inside that magazine, there was a whole bunch of training articles and pictures from the Mr. Olympia. And boy, I was pretty much caught up with Mike Mentzer and high intensity training. That actually was what hit me. So something about it just clicked. It was right. And at a young age, I was only at that time, 17. And I didn't really start training until I was 18 or 19. So it took me a little while. I pretty much studied it before actually stepping into it,
Yeah. Wow. What a story. It's that age where we're kind of like a sponge and we just soak everything up. And for me, when I got into it, it was kind of about finding an identity and wanting to kind of go from that boy into that sort of the next stage, and becoming familiar with weightlifting was a real introduction into that world. John, you mentioned Mike Mentzer, a legendary figure. You've mentioned as well that you've worked with him. He's coached you. What was that like? Let's talk about that.
Well, I'll tell you what, the first time that I met him, well, first of all, I saw an article written by him. I'd always followed his teachings and I tried to train that way. And I actually got a hold of his booklets early on in that first year of training. That's what took me so long to get into it. I kind of studied it first. And then eventually I moved from New York. I was born and raised in New York. And around 20 years old, I moved out to Los Angeles. And when I did, a few years later, I saw an article written by him and it had a phone number on the bottom of it. I contacted him through the phone number. I left a message, and man, a couple nights later, in the middle of the night, I'm in my garage working on some equipment. And that phone rang, and I had a phone, installed in the garage. And when I answered it, it was him. And boy, 2 hours straight, we went on the phone and talked about a lot. And yeah, he invited me to come and train with him at the gym. I paid the man. He trained me. And the very first time, Rob, when I walked in there, I had this image in my head of this man who was just, heroic. As a young man, most of us have idols, And when I walked in there, it was extremely disappointing, not because physically he didn't have it anymore. I knew he didn't have it like he did when he was a pro bodybuilder, but the man himself, between smoking cigarettes outside, I was sitting at a bench, to just the attitude in general about other people, there were some things, he had some challenges, but I had to see past that because I really wanted to know, what was between here. I wanted what he had in here. So I truly looked at him like he was a mentor, regardless of any character issues or whatever was going on in his life prior to that. So I set myself at his footstool. I pretty much wanted to learn. And then we found out we lived on the same block in Playa del Rey. Yeah, in Southern California. Talk about coincidences, right? And so I'd walk on over to his house often and hang out in his living room, and we'd watch videos and talk bodybuilding endlessly, and became good friends that way. So for me, going in and changing my business model, even though I was training in a high intensity fashion, but training clients that way. He really pushed me to do that as well. And it brought a whole other level of progress to my clients. So that's really how it all happened. And I think just in general, I had decided no idols for me. That's pretty much it. He's just a man, just like other people. It's good to have mentors, not idols.
Yeah, well, they say never meet your heroes, and maybe that's a prime case. It's funny that the kids of today will never know how it was, and I speak kind of as the younger generation in this conversation. There'd be ads where you could phone in a number and leave a question, and these greats, these idols, legendary, bodybuilding figures would be able to then record a message. I know Frank Zane, who is one of those, would be able to then record a cassette tape, which many kids today probably wouldn't even know what to do with it. And then they would mail it back to you, and you would put it in and listen to the advice that they give. And, now everyone's just on their phones and, pumping out information. Let's go back to those core lifting principles that, you were sort of under Mike's guidance. How would you explain to someone with a home gym setup what those core principles are and how they might be able to incorporate them into their lifting at home?
Well, being someone who does have a home gym myself, that's why I do the majority of my training now. Okay. As you know. Okay. And I do have Powertec equipment as well. So that's kind of cool. The core principle that I would say to just about anybody, and this is even for those guys who are listening and watching, those girls who are listening and watching, who may not, buy into the whole, just do one all out set of all out effort. I mean, that's really the ideal, right? But if I had to break it down in simple terms for anybody to understand, I would say the next time you go to work out, if you're used to doing 4 sets of an exercise and 3 or 4 exercises for a body part, let's just simplify it and say the next time you work out, after you're done warming up, I want you to go and train with twice the effort, which will result in you doing half the amount of work. It will result in that, because if you just go into it with the attitude of, I'm going to give my best effort and take it to the point where I cannot get another great repetition at the end of a set, then what that will do is invariably it's going to waste you a little bit earlier, and your muscle will let you know that, look, this is a futile effort trying to do 4 sets like this. Guess what? Parentheses, you were pacing yourself before. That's it. Y'all don't realize you're pacing yourself. You might do it because you enjoy it. You might do it because, hey, I like working out and getting a nice pump and like this. That's fine. You might do it only because your heroes trained that way. And that's understandable. It is. You might do it because your training partner likes to train that way. However, factually speaking, what's necessary to stimulate that muscle to grow? What's necessary? What's more like the least necessary? And let's work from that. Because if you can get the least amount necessary done in the gym, your home gym, it doesn't matter what you have at home. If you can take it to the point of close to momentary muscular failure, don't leave so much in the tank is the point. They've already established through many recent studies that doing between 5 and 30 repetitions per set on any exercise, if you take it to momentary muscular failure, you will stimulate muscular growth and, parentheses, additional strength gains. With a bigger muscle, you will get a little bit stronger. So by focusing on taking your last repetition to that point, to that end, where the last repetition is not complete, right? You want to do it on safe exercises. You don't want to do it on a squat. Obviously, if I'm using a barbell and in your training at home, obviously you want to use a power cage. Obviously, if you're going to dump the weight, that could be a little bit dangerous. You want to stop with 1 rep in the tank, okay? But on most other exercises, I told you I really enjoy that the Powertec incline bench press. I really enjoy it. You could take that thing to the end where you cannot get another complete repetition, and the weight goes halfway up, and you hold it there, and you fight it for 10 seconds, and you'll see it'll start to go down on you. You're not going to crush anything. You're in a Powertec incline bench, right? So the great part about it, when you use a certain machine or a home machine, or if you have a good spotter at home as well, is that you can take things to the end and you'll stimulate more with a lot less. So there we go. The bottom line sentence is stimulate more and you'll do a lot less, whether by choice or your body taking you to that end saying, we're not going to do any more. It's one way or the other.
Yeah, it's a t-shirt slogan right there. What a great answer. I kind of liken it to kind of going for a leisurely Sunday drive or getting in your car and trying to get up to the top speed pretty quickly. Make sure the engine's warmed up, kind of do a few light-ish warm-up sets of the exercises that you are going to be doing, and then it's go time. The goal is to kind of get towards that point of failure, like you said, as quickly, but as safely and as effectively as possible. And then once you've done that, you move on and you essentially attack the muscle from a different angle through different exercises. I see all too often a lot of younger people replicating the same exercise over and over and over in these commercial gyms, whether it's a back exercise and they're doing this sort of one-arm row and then they're doing another row variant and then another. And you just think, let alone hitting failure, you're just exhausting the muscle at this point. And no one seems to be chasing. And when I use the word gains, I'm talking not just in size, but a progression in their training, result-driven, effort. It's one thing to go to the gym to be there, be seen, work out with your buddies and have a good time. But I really get the sense that when you and I talk about training, we are there for a reason. We are training for a goal, a purpose, whether it's for the stage or just knowing that we're putting in the work and we're getting an effort from that work. Otherwise, what we're doing is essentially wasted. So that leads me on to my next question. A lot of lifters can struggle with the concept of intensity versus volume. And especially when they're lifting at home, solo, on their own in their home gym, how would you coach many of the clients through that discussion of intensity and volume when training alone at home?
Okay, so don't be dogmatic. That's the first thing I would say. Just because we have a routine that Mike Mentzer had taught or John Hart has taught, if I could talk about myself in the third person for the moment, I've written several books on training, okay, for various levels of training. And anybody can go to my website and find it. But the don't be so dogmatic. Just because I wrote a routine, just because Mike wrote a routine, just because Arnold trained a certain way, just because Rob trains a certain way. If you're in your home gym and you're training, okay, and you believe you didn't get it with one set of an exercise taken to the end, by all means, do a second set. The world won't stop revolving, okay? Just make sure you're getting good rest, right? So that's the thing, is that I've never been, even though I've been sort of like an additional arch advocate of training more intensely, but train less. You'll get more out of it. You'll be able to have a life outside of the gym, outside of training, right? And even think about that. And outside of your garage, you'll have a life. Okay. We want to get out a little bit, right? Hey, how about this one? Here's a novel idea. How about invite a friend to train in your garage with you once in a while? There you go. So that being the case, don't be dogmatic about it. Go with what you believe is best for you. As long as you're recovering and making progress, that's number one. And I would say so be results driven, like you said. It's ironic you used that phrase a moment ago, because in my training community, that comment or that phrase is very common. I have my own training community. I'll give you links to that later, but it's very common. Results driven. That's what we are. We're results driven. So if you have a great workout that you're doing and you're enjoying, keep in mind. So you have to have, there's an element of, there has to be an enjoyment aspect somewhere in there. And that's what keeps you going for 4 decades. That's what keeps you going for 5 decades. If you don't like it and like what you're doing, at least you have to like the results of what you're doing, because that will carry you. That will carry you, no doubt. If you like the results, you can always push yourself because you're training hard, you're training infrequently, right? It might make you a little bit nauseous. It might make you, but bottom line, you're getting the results that you want. And that's it. So determine what kind of an animal you are. Are you results driven, or is it just an exercise / enjoyment type activity, or maybe even just a stay healthy for life activity? If those are your things, I don't knock that at all. I'm 60 right now, Rob. I know what it's like to look down the right. So I'm about halfway through by my expectations, and so I'm looking at it like I've had a great run of 54 years of being competitive. I had a competitive career from age 19 straight through 54. And I always competed in the open class. I never, as a teenager, and then in the open class. I never did master's classes. And I reckoned that, for me and my standards, if I can't compete in the open class, then I'm just done. For me, I don't want to be an older John Hart on stage. Oh, look, he doesn't look like he used to look. Oh, look at that. His skin is sagging. Oh, look, he's got pancake ass. Oh, look, all of that. What happens? Well, you get older. Well, when you get older, the mindset has to change to, well, I do need to be more conscious of the fact that this vehicle I sit in right here has to carry me over the next 60 years. So how I treat it really matters. So training safely is always number one. Do I still get aggressive and all out in my workouts? No doubt about it. Can't wait to work out with you, Rob. Looking forward to the next time I'm in Los Angeles. Cannot wait. Okay. However, safely. So that's where a lot of the equipment comes into play. I just did a tour of my home gym and put it up in my community. They get some of the exclusive content, but I showed everything that I have, right down to like the little handles even. And they see how, the majority of my equipment, it's all for everyone in my family. It's very good. It's very safe. It's hardcore, a lot of barbells and dumbbells, but hardcore. And the bottom line is you can train as hard as you want, and safety. I've taught my entire family how to train safely. You use that power rack, you use the cage, you use all the standard safety catches on everything. That's really important. So that's pretty much a lesson, in how you can go not just 20, 30, 40 years, but how about the next 40 after that? You really want to still have fun doing it. Where is your fun? Is your fun had in being results driven? Mine is. And I love walking away from my workouts going, wow, I did something exciting today. It's not gone, Rob. It's not gone. That voice in my head is not gone. It's not gone. So everybody has their standards, right?
Yeah. Wow. A lot to unpack in that answer. First off, 60, I say wow because I honestly thought you were in your low 50s. I put that down to the lifestyle that we live. And a lot of that is down to weightlifting. Yes, one can eat a healthy, balanced diet. One can abstain from doing the things that will age them. But I firmly believe that weightlifting, progressive weightlifting, like you said, taking the muscle to a point of momentary failure, not just lifting weights to be fit and active, although I do believe that will contribute towards that, but actual strength training with the goal of hypertrophy. Yes. Is one of the biggest youthful things anyone can do. Men, women. It's not about getting bulky. It's about keeping a optimal, functioning body. I believe I'm at my best. I feel at my best when I'm lifting heavy for me. And I love what you said. Everyone's got their own sort of strategy, their own concept of how they want to look, what they want to get out from it, which results they aiming for. I lift heavy for me. I could do heavier, but I like the routine that I do. And I believe that from having done that for the past 20 or so years, that keeps me feeling as energetic and as passionate as I was since pretty much day one.
So let me add to that too, Rob. Hypertrophy should be the goal. It brings strength gains with it. Mm-hmm. If you gain, I'm talking about Rob Rich now, if you gain 5 pounds of lean muscle mass, okay, you will be that much stronger than Rob was 5 pounds ago. Sure. All right. So with that hypertrophy comes, it's not just water weight. With it comes more amino acid storage, more glycogen storage for energy, more creatine storage, more electrolyte storage. Okay. All of these things add up to, ready, a greater immune response. You have more reserve for an immune response. I'm reminded of when I first went from California to Texas. It was in July of 2021, and COVID, it was raging all over the country, but especially in Los Angeles, it was apparently more concentrated because we were all still wearing masks. Okay, the rest of the country was like throwing them away, and my wife and I both had to kill a really good case of COVID. I'm talking about, we took it with us from LA to here. We didn't know we both had it driving here. Okay. And 11 days battle for 11 days, both of us, right? At the end of 11 days, I was 26 pounds lighter. Where'd that come from? You see what I mean? 26 pounds lighter. Now at the time I was 56. My wife was only 44 or 45. 45. And between the two of us, she was recovering much quicker. She also had less muscle loss in the course of, the 11 days. What does that tell you? Well, we knew that people 50 plus had more of a challenge, their immune systems, all of that. But I had more muscle mass to sacrifice to beat that thing down, to kill that thing. Okay. And it was a battle. It was the hardest thing that I've ever beat down, my immune system that I can remember in this lifetime. So it is a concern, Rob, for the older gentlemen out there and ladies out there. It is a concern that when you get up past 50-ish, that immune system needs to be operating at full capacity. I get full nights of sleep. No, I don't drink alcohol by choice. No, I don't party up. I don't use recreational drugs. No, I don't overdo anything anymore. Anything. I don't use my body to sacrifice, even doing experiments for YouTube and for my clients and for my audience. No, I won't do it. I will not do a crazy diet anymore. I'll have somebody else do it, but not me, because I have to live in this machine. And so when you have more muscle mass, you're right. I'm 100% in agreement with you that training specifically for hypertrophy, knowing the strength gains will come, is possibly the best thing you can do for longevity, health, as well as mobility, flexibility, if you're natural, especially. Okay, let's put it that way. Okay, for mobility and flexibility, that's a fact. And it just, you get really great chemical release when you are training hard with the weights. A really great chemical release. I would challenge any runner who gets a running high to train, intensely with the weights and not say, "Hey, this is pretty cool." It's the same or better. It's better. So I agree with you, Rob. We're in agreement on that one.
Yeah, that's a great point about not just the aesthetics of how we look and how we appear to others, but we're essentially optimizing and upgrading our metabolic system, our immune system. Great points. I want to move on now to another point that you touched upon, and that is recovery and joints, especially for somebody who's been lifting for 4 decades. And I know a lot of our Powertec demographic, a lot of our followers in their 40s, 50s and above, who have been training for all of these years and are still chasing those results. We still have that passion. It's in our blood. It's in our DNA now. But let's talk about recovery. You mentioned about sleep, abstaining from alcohol, all of these other factors that can, squash us down and let's just say, stop us from optimizing the results that we're after. Let's talk about recovery. How important is it in your experience? Sleep, nutritional aspects, whether it's supplementation. Mm-hmm. I love the fact that you talk about natural. I do want to talk about that as well. I think it's something that is brushed under the rug, so to speak. A lot of people who may be using performance enhancing drugs or other factors that contribute to faster, greater gains. And I think a lot of the time audiences are somewhat naive or unaware of that. And so the hard thing here, and this is what I found in my experience in my early years, is that when we follow other people's advice, or rather we look at what they do and think, I want to be like them, I want to achieve what they're doing, but we fail to know what it is that they are doing on top of the advice that they're putting out. it really falls short that you see a 230-pound ripped guy and you're like, man, I want to be like him, but I can't be like him unless I do what he's doing. But I'm not aware of the things that he's doing and also the hidden dangers of what he's doing. So I don't want to get into that topic too much, but I'm glad that you touched upon it. I think it's an important factor, even now, more so than ever, to talk about and raise awareness of why they might do that and some of the dangers of contributed towards doing that, but mainly the safety aspect and the benefits of staying natural towards joint, our ligaments, our health. But let's first talk about recovery.
Okay. I did mention, I get great sleep. I really endeavor to get to bed early for me. And my aim is 7 hours of sleep every night. Okay. So that is what I generally do get every single night. I do sleep straight through. I'm not one of those guys. I don't have any issues. Like they say, 1 out of 4 men over 50 have prostate issues, and they're awakened, several times a night, multiple times a night, some on the hour, which is horrible. If some of y'all who are listening to this have issues like that, my advice to that is get to your physician, have it taken care of. Do not live that way. You're destroying your sleep, which is your immune system as well, and it's going to bring horrible health. I'll get right off of that now. I'm not going to spend time on that, but that's the advice on that one. So get great sleep. Number 2, I'm super hydrated all the time. I don't drink before bed, but I do stay hydrated at all times. So it's very clean water all the time. Number 3, alcohol is out for me personally. It's not any kind of a hang up. Look, if you do a small amount of it, big deal. It's your life. For me personally, it started with just my wife looking at me and like, what do you think you're doing? And man, I knew that night I was not getting laid. So I'm out. Okay. So alcohol is out in my house. I'd rather have a fun time with my wife if we can be frank here. Yeah. Sure. So if we can talk plainly here, right? So, so that is and has been out for years. And then on top of it all, so when we talk about recovery, Rob, recovery is equally as important as training itself. Okay, that's one thing that Mike Mentzer did contribute to my thought processes, and it has held itself to be 100% true that recovery equal 50-50 with training. Okay, I would even go so far as to say recovery / overcompensation is equally as important as the training. You have to consider both. When you're done training, are you recovering from your workouts? And are you overcompensating from your workouts? How do I identify those things? Well, I identify those things simply by, number 1, and first and foremost, is having a notebook or my phone, detailing what did I do in prior workouts and have I been progressing? If I've been progressing in small strength gains here and there, my look, have I been progressing on my, short-term goal of reducing 10 pounds of body fat and it's been happening regularly, or is it halted for some reason? That usually means that there's no recovery. My body's overtrained, both mentally and physically, and I'm not going to be as motivated to continue on. Okay. That means something is off. That doesn't matter whether we're talking about growing muscle or we're talking about even reducing body fat. You still need to have great recovery to reduce body fat efficiently and feel as good as you can while that's happening. The other thing is motivation. If you're not recovered or overcompensating, motivation goes straight out the window. You will just not want to work out anymore. You will not want to train. I keep hearing stories from guys that get to me online about how, they've been mostly off and on over the years. To me, that thought process is just, what do you mean mostly off and on? What is that? I don't even know what that is. It's just on for me. It's like all gas, no brake. So you have to stop me from training. So y'all, if you're going off and on, there's a reason why. It's not just life getting in the way. So there's other things involved. You should be treating it like it's an experiment. Okay. And an experiment is not something that, you can, in bodybuilding and weight training, your experiment on you is not one that's going to be sort of like this endless linear, I'm going to gain muscle from this month all the way through next year at this time. It doesn't work that way. Right? It does more like this. It's like a zigzag, right? Yeah. And you have to be prepared for the downs and then the ups, right? Like this. And as long as you could draw a straight line on that graph through how you're progressing, or if you're trying to reduce body fat, same thing, right? Stair step on the way down. straight line through that, then you know you're heading in the right direction. That's motivating, okay? Let me give you a couple of things that I do to make sure I'm recovering properly. So I don't want to get lost in the subject of recovery, how important it is, as much as what can you do besides sleep, being well hydrated. When's the last time you had a blood test and just checked your vitamin D3 levels? D3 right now is being identified as possibly, and magnesium are being identified as some of the most deficient things. I in my day gig, I'm responsible for 520 people. Okay. I'm the wellness coordinator at a fairly large company. That's my day gig outside of what I do in social media. And involved in that, the majority of them have blood work done, and I get to see. I know the answers. I know why a lot of them have been stalled, and why a lot of them struggle, and why a lot of them are even getting depressed, and they don't know why they're getting depressed because their D3 levels are so low, rock bottom, and that affects their testosterone levels. You know, all of these are related. The magnesium, the testosterone, the D3, the sleep. And then next thing you know, they're reaching for some HRT. I'm going to smoothly segue into just a brief about HRT, okay? Sure. If you don't mind. Absolutely. So they're reaching for the HRT. They show up at their doctor's office. Their lifestyle, keep in mind that I believe 100% that as a man, especially women too, but our lifestyle of why do we have high testosterone levels? Well, our body is a survival mechanism, a survival machine that God gave us. This machine is designed to protect and to go out, hunt and kill, okay? If I'm not killing something on a regular basis, well, why would my body maintain high testosterone levels? That means being aggressive. I don't mean kill a human being. I'm talking about my body needs to know that it's been assaulted, just like as if a mountain lion tried to jump on me. So whether that's a leg press coming down, trying to smack me like a big fly swatter, or a barbell on my back, or whatever it is, I have to get those juices flowing aggressively, right? That's number one. Number two, as married men, we could talk. Look, married men, as number two, reproduction. You need testosterone for reproduction, okay? I don't want to be going off on the single men. Y'all don't belong doing that for now. But reproducing, when you're married, well, keep that private life going good, okay? And testosterone levels will maintain themselves. And then number three, you need to have a little bit of saturated fat in your diet. The saturated fat is not the boogeyman. And then if you're using any sort of a statin, then of course you're going to have to address that with your physician on how much saturated fat can you eat. And the absorption of saturated fat is very important, again, to build testosterone. So guys who just quickly default on, oh, I went to my doctor, my test was low, and the doc prescribed for me HRT. To me, I see the general population right now in our society, at least in the United States, as a population where we have a great, huge population of lab rats that in about 20 or 30 years, we're going to find out just how good or bad this was for their lifestyles, because I don't see anybody in their 80s still on HRT from 30 or 40 years ago, because they're dead by 70, 75. They're dead with some sort of cardiovascular disease or heart issue. And years ago, a good friend of mine, Rick Drayson, I used to be a regular on his show on YouTube. He was on HRT. He was, 40 or 50 year steroid user, and then he was on HRT. I watched him die right before my eyes with heart failure, congestive heart failure, and kidney failure, water retention everywhere. And that heart, the chambers of his heart was taking a beating. And I've seen it multiple times in a lot of older men because they've been on HRT for an extended period of time. HRT is, hormone replacement therapy, fairly low dose steroids, basically. Anybody who says I'm just on HRT, I'm not on steroids, doesn't know what they're talking about. They're on a low dose of steroids is what they're doing. So I want to emphasize to the vast majority of people out there, men and women, there's a great lifestyle out there. It's called bodybuilding. That's what it's called. It's called bodybuilding, and especially natural bodybuilding. If you are a natural bodybuilder and you're training your balls off, okay, I know a lot of women out there, you're not going to have your balls to train off, but training hard, intensely, giving your body a reason to maintain its high testosterone levels, its high lean muscle mass levels, its aggressiveness, its joint integrity. I'm seamlessly moving into joint integrity, Rob. I did remember all your questions.
I see that. Yeah.
So if you can do those things and train as hard as possible even into older age. I've trained people all the way up to age 94, and they trained hard. Okay. Up to 94, I've trained clientele, and they trained very hard. It didn't matter. Maybe when you get older, maybe you don't do as often training through a full range of motion. That's fine. You don't have to do that. Maybe it's doing more static holds where you're actually holding a heavy weight in place and you're just resisting against the weights. Maybe it's, doing some more negative or eccentric only training with slightly heavier weights. There are a lot of safe ways to train with resistance training and still give an all-out effort. And you don't have to lift conventionally, let's say, if your joints, in particular, if you have a knee, a hip, a back, a elbow, a shoulder that's bothering you, there's ways around that to train still very hard and stimulate the muscle mass and stimulate a hormonal response from your body, especially in natural bodybuilding. Okay. And why do I say this? Because people will be going, yeah, but I could take the HRT and I'll be bigger and stronger. Well, that's true, but it's cyclical. Okay. So if you're going to use the steroids, what goes up must come down. There's going to be a turnoff in your body. If you take artificial hormones, your body will turn off its own hormones in response. Eventually, you're going to come down. The problem too is with the steroid, even with the HRT, the lean muscle mass grows faster than the tendons do. That's a problem because the tendons and the ligaments, the strength of the tendon and the ligament won't keep up with the muscle mass. And that's where you see torn muscles. Okay. It's extremely rare that you'll see a natural bodybuilder with a torn muscle. It just doesn't happen. It's so infrequent because at least someone who trains smart, it's extremely infrequent that would happen because their muscle mass and their tendon ligament strength keep up with one another. And it does so for life. So it's also an answer for those who have arthritis. And I'm going to say this on purpose because you have the choice to make. Sit on the couch and be in pain, or go to the gym, train really hard, get a nice rush of chemicals and feel great for a few hours and have relief from that pain, and then go home. And maybe later on the pain comes back if that's the case, but at least you had relief from the pain. And then who knows, chemically, long-term, on a microscopic level, on a cellular level, who knows, maybe that is holding off severe arthritic situations, right? I don't know, but you don't know either. Sitting on the couch is not the answer, right? I hope I got all the answers in there, Rob.
You did. Yeah. I love talking with you. Your mindset is very much in the same pool of how I think, how I train, how I live. And I think that is a shrinking pool in today's society. So based on these really great, insightful conversations, I want to ask a question which I'm sure is going to create a bit of a divide, perhaps, amongst opinions, but I think those are what great conversations are about. And so my question is, and I feel like you and I are going to have the same belief system about this. So I'm curious, from a personal standpoint, to hear your input on this. Why do you think testosterone in today's society is lower than what we've seen in previous decades? And I want to phrase that for all purposes. Men today don't seem to be as manly as they were in past decades. And look, I'm not talking about this, and I think this has a factor about it as well, but this sort of masculinity term has been squashed by media and a lot of public domain. We've kind of taken that pendulum from the sort of the 80s macho man to this complete 180 reversal. But I loved a lot of the points that you were talking about, especially the sort of the aggression in ancient man's ability to be able to hunt. I think that is, for generations, determined how, as a man, has evolved and grown. We're not talking about sexism here. We're talking about what a man has been over the past, 1,000 iterations of generation. So let me summarize this and ask you directly, why do you think we are seeing less and less of a testosterone-driven man in today's society?
The demasculinization of men from, probably I'd go back now about 30 30, we're in 2025 now. So I would go back about 30 years or so. So somewhere in the 90s, things started to switch, getting into the 2000s. And a large portion of our society, let's say, it's not even just in the United States, Rob, a large portion of our society throughout the world has tended to downplay in boys the characteristics that make boys what boys are. Okay. You've probably heard the example of how it's hard to get a boy to sit in a classroom and learn. A lot of teachers have problems with that, and they're mainly female teachers. I'm just stating facts right now. And that being the case, the girls are very quick to, or easier to teach and train in the classroom. Someone had said to me at one point, and I've heard this said many times now since the advent of social media, that if you would just take those boys and take them into the schoolyard prior to school and make them sprint back and forth from the furthest pole back in a race fashion and just have them burn off that first level of steam, right? Energy that they need to burn off in the morning time, that you would have a much more willing participant in the classroom if you would just do that first. Yes, some people look at that as being sexist. I don't care. Look at it any way you want. But it's more of a factual situation that, look, in my house, we homeschooled our boys. We have two boys, one girl, okay? We homeschooled all three of them. And the oldest one, he went till high school, homeschooled. He's the only one that really went to high school full blown. And when we would homeschool them, we recognized clearly the boys need to do their activity first. So we took them all out, including my daughter, first thing in the morning. My wife would get them on out, and they did something physical prior to getting to the learning aspect. So that's one way of going about it. But the demasculinization, a boy having female traits, or a boy being very gentle and soft and kind, just any boy being gentle and soft and kind, whether it's me or you when we were a boy, when they got around the 90s or the 2000s, it was celebrated. That behavior was celebrated. But yet, if I went out in the backyard or in the schoolyard and I killed a snake and brought that snake back into the teacher and showed it to the teacher, the horror on the teacher's face would have told the whole story. You see? They would have told the whole story right there. That's what I'm talking about. As opposed to the smart teacher would have looked at that and realized, I have a young warrior in front of me. This is not someone who's going to go and kill human beings. This is somebody who we need generals. We need leaders. We need those who are willing to cut their teeth. Frontliners, right? We need them. Without them, we're in trouble. And so there's a demasculinization. Celebrate some of the boy things that boys have as well. And then they'll grow up having had that release. I would contend having had that release as a boy, meaning they had an avenue to go and let go of all that energy. I'll tell you what, growing up in the South right now, or being in the South right now in Texas, I can tell you, I meet a lot of men who were outdoorsmen and their daddies taught them how to live right. And that's another factor too, by the way. Their daddies. They had dads. Taught them how to live right, how to hunt, how to go out and kill something, how to go out and deal with nature, survive, how to go out there, climb a tree when a bear was coming. I mean, all of these things, okay? Well, not climb a tree when a bear is coming, the bear can get up there, but find a way around situations, right?
I hear you. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if you have a young boy who is permitted to be a boy and train them up as a boy, and celebrate the characteristics of a boy, then you will have a young man who does not need to release all this pent-up frustration and energy that could go in a negative. He could turn left instead of staying straight. We don't want him to go left because that could turn into bad outcomes, whether it's, abusing women, or some of the, like I say, some of them are killers out there. Some of the people in society who have done very bad things, I would contend, had very bad upbringings and a lot of pent-up frustration, a lot of situations where instead of getting on out and training them right, they were thrown on meds, Rob. They were thrown on, and they were considered to be ADHD or ADD, and they were thrown on meds, and they were turned into a little experiment. That's what I'm saying. Everything through the late 90s into the 2000s, those boys were considered rambunctious, out of control, hard to teach. Oh, too much energy, way too hyperactive. And they were thrown on ADHD medication. And now we're starting to see how the roosters have come home to roost, so to speak. And we're now in the 2020s. And there are problems with boys that were not permitted to be boys, that now they're adult men and don't know how to process being an adult man. Is weight training and bodybuilding the answer to all of that? I don't know. But I'm raising my boys that way. They lift weights. They train really hard. They have activities that they do. And so my daughter too, for that matter, trains really hard. But I would say it's a great activity to expose your young man to from a very young age, and maybe not, of course, do certain exercises or have them lift super heavy when they're very young. You don't want to damage them. But that would be a couple of factors I would point out to, is not letting them be boys when they're young, not having a daddy in their lives. So I would encourage a lot of men who do know some young boys out there to step up and perhaps volunteer to be, a big brother to them or a dad figure to them. I have been through several lifetimes now, but there are some young men out there that I've done my best with, and they've turned out pretty good. So from experience, I could speak on that one. So I was raised by a good dad. He was a man's man. So, and then I've had the benefit of meeting, great men, as I've grown up as a young adult and into adulthood in my 20s, 30s, and even 40s. I've met some men that now I hope to be that same example to younger men. You see?
A lot of great points that I could talk about for hours with you, I feel, but I want to pick one out in particular, and that is mention about dads and their sons. And I'm going to use this example just because that's who we are, a son or male in that aspect. I want to talk about paying it forwards, passing on the knowledge, passing that key on to the next generation, whether it's your son or whomever it is. Let me round this great podcast up with my final question, and that is, from your experience, which 3 key pieces of information or exercises, rather, which 3 key exercises would you pass on in terms of getting the most bang for your buck when training at home, with the setup that you've got, minimal setup or whatever pieces of equipment, but which 3 exercises are going to deliver the most bang for their buck in terms of giving you the results for the effort that you put in?
That's a good question, because the simple go-to answer to that would be something like home training. I'm assuming that you have some sort of a ability to do a squat variation. Okay. So we're going to talk about, I use the word variation, okay, because some of you, like myself, I have a power cage. I have access to a barbell safely squatting or front squatting in a cage. Okay. So if you have a machine, great, use a machine. If you have a leg press, that would be a satisfactory. So some sort of a squat variation, or goblet squat, heavy goblet squat, or squat variation, barbell squat, front squat. And if you don't have that, a leg press of some sort. Okay. That would be one. Home training, we're going to have a chin-up bar set up somewhere in there. If you're too heavy to do chin-ups, or pull-ups, then deadlifts all the way. So we got to have one or the other. I'm going to do a cheat on this one. I'm going to say alternating them. It's going to be a 2A and 2B. Okay.
Sure. Yep.
So a chin up and a deadlift, and you can make your choice on the deadlift. Some people I like conventional deadlifting. I'm not a RDL guy, or I do staggered stance deadlifts for my hamstrings. They're really good. They make my hamstrings sore for a week, if not at times.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's about it. But a deadlift alternating with a chin up or pull down. And if you can't do a chin up or pull down, stay with the deadlifts. And then lastly, man, what kind of home setup do we have? We have so many variations. Some sort of a pressing movement. I would do an incline rather than a flat. If you have a dip bar set up, great, do that. If you have, I say incline because it's a little bit better for the shoulder joint, and long-term, I think you're going to get better results having a better upper chest development. And it also involves your shoulders quite a bit. So we're involving a lot of muscle masses in everything that I just said. Okay. So a free weight squat of some variation would be preferred, because we're going to use, it's a core exercise. You're using both your upper and your lower body simultaneously. You're going to use your core to a great degree. You're going to hit your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your calves, your lower back, your upper back, everything involved. A chin up or a deadlift, alternating with a deadlift 2A and 2B, that hits every one of the upper body muscle masses, as well as the hips in conjunction with the upper body. Again, another core movement. You're using your biceps, your forearms to a great degree as well. Triceps, upper triceps to a great degree as well. Then you go on to doing some sort of, lastly out of the three, some sort of preferably incline press. Dumbbell, barbell, machine. I prefer, and I'm no plug here. We're on a Powertec show. I see your show. We're on a Powertec show. I like the Powertec incline. That's it. Because you don't get crushed by it, right? It has the opening in the middle. So I like that a lot. You can set it for the height you can use. So it's a fun one. So if you don't have access to that, dumbbells are great. If you don't have access to that, push-ups with your feet elevated are great. Wear a vest for added resistance. There's many ways of doing it. Bands, there's so many ways. Just some kind of incline press or chest press, preferably on an incline, so we get more shoulder involvement with the chest. And that will also involve a lot of tricep mass as well. So I like all of those, Rob. That would be my answer. That was a long answer for 3 exercises.
I love it. I love all 3. The fundamentals are key, the basics that keep on giving. I'm seeing less and less of them being performed in commercial gyms. I'm so glad that we are talking about them. And I know both of us in our own platforms and teachings and, content that we're putting out is very much focused on, again, paying that information forward that helped us in the beginning, throughout certainly the last 4 decades, and your teachings, your careers, the legendary icons that have mentored you along the way. I think we need a lot more of that to squash the noise and let the real scientific, result-driven backed information flourish again, and have people get back to doing the basics. And I'm going to be careful how I put this out there, but
say it.
let's just say everyone finding their way again without deviating from their path. How about that?
That's pretty good. Okay.
John, it's been amazing chatting with you, really, from a informational standpoint, but just from a likened mindset, few and far between in today's sort of society and age. But let me finish by asking you, where can people come to find out more about your teachings, your methods, your ideology, and if they can reach out and connect with you?
Yes. I have 2 main sources or directions you could go. One is, I have a website, MrAmericaHeart.com, and it's HEART, like the blood pump. So spell that part right. So MrAmericaHeart.com. You can go there, and it will take you to everything that I offer pretty much. Okay. On YouTube, I have a YouTube channel at Mr. America Heart. Okay. So Mr. America Heart, one word straight through, Mr. America Heart. Again, the blood pump, Heart is the last name, right?
Mm-hmm.
And through those two channels, you can click on any one of my videos on YouTube on my channel, and you'll see in the video descriptions, I've uploaded all links for everything from my training community to the books that I've written. I think I've taken a multifaceted approach to helping people through whatever venue you choose. If you like reading a paperback book, I've written 3 of them. Okay. So you can pick yours, whichever one you want. Go get a hard paperback cover. If you like doing digital, I sell digital downloads. If you, want to have a one-on-one consultation, you can go to my website. It's offered on there. If you want to just, be not a lurker, but if you want to be a silent observer and just learn as much as possible, I have about 700 videos through my YouTube channel uploaded already. And yes, I'm on Instagram as well, but the vast majority of my content is on YouTube. It's just a great platform for me personally. I like the interactions, and I also have a great training community, which I've started on the side. It's more of an exclusive thing that you can get through any one of those video descriptions through YouTube. You'll see my training community is in there, and you can just join up on that, and you'll get a lot of behind the scenes content and be able to ask me direct questions, because sometimes I can't get into the thousands, in YouTube. It's a huge comment section, right? But my private community, it becomes more of a little bit of a priority, a little bit more exclusive, and they can get in there and ask me direct questions. I make it a priority of getting back to everybody, usually the same day. So that's pretty cool. So thank you, Rob. I want to thank you also before you sign off. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and share some of the ideas, the training, the wisdom that's been taught to me over the years, and just from some of my observations as well. I knew the moment that we met that we had a lot of like-minded situations, between our minds, and just the association with a great company like Powertec. I do appreciate them very much, and the quality of the home gym equipment, as well as, I call it commercial grade, because man, some of that stuff is heavy duty, man. So besides that, it's a blast getting to do these podcasts, and I'm super excited. And anytime you want me to come on back, just set it up. I'm more than happy to come on back. And maybe some of the people that you have in your podcast, if they have specific questions, y'all can go ahead and ask it. Maybe we'll do a live, or maybe you just want to have specific questions from them at some point, and I'm more than happy to ask on your podcast.
Incredible, John. I think we'll do one better. We'll try and get you out here to California, to the Powertec headquarters, and down to the studio here. We can do all of that together. We'll do a live IG, YouTube. We'll answer some questions. We'll put some information out ahead of time, and you and I can just chat, and the floor is yours. YouTube, I just want to end with this. YouTube, I think, is king for content, because it allows us to put out long form videos. And just a quick touch back on some of the past topics we were mentioning. These new social media platforms have drastically shortened the time in which the information we are putting out. And so it has drastically cut down on how much information we can put out. And I believe that in order to learn and take on these new, well, for us, they're not new, but this sort of old school way of thinking, there needs to be more information than just 30 seconds of tidbits of information. So we'll try to make that happen. We'll get you out here. We'll put it out there to both of our communities, and we'll continue sharing this information, passion, motivation that we've got with training. So thank you again, John. I can't wait to get you down here, and we'll chat some more, and we'll continue this conversation in person.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Take care.